From NIC News, this is Today with a Shepherding Team update with Liz Gracie and Myron McCoy from the studios of the Chicago Temple. 16 volunteer early adopter congregations have embarked on a rigorous church vitality coaching initiative. Only on Today, we'll hear from the lead coach and from one of the church participants. Finally, we'll hear how two congregations that previously thought they were incompatible came together to form one vital congregation and embark on a journey of hope. All that today, Saturday, July 17th, 2021.
When the Vital Congregations Task Force formed in 2019, they sought volunteers for a pilot project. In December 2020, those volunteer congregations began the project with an evaluation of their readiness for a rigorous church vitality initiative. 7 of them have embarked on a 12-month process of discernment and coaching. Myron had a chance to talk with Paul Nixon, CEO of Epicenter Group, the consulting firm leading the project.
Paul, you and the Epicenter Group have developed a step-by-step process for congregations to transform themselves and to enhance their vitality. And certainly the first step is a self-evaluation to determine their readiness for the program. What are some of the characteristics of a church that is ready for transformation?
What we try to do with readiness is to look at the internal life of that church and looking at several different factors. One is just the spiritual dynamics of what's happening there. What are kind of the spiritual muscles that church has as they deal with change, as they deal with the possibility of reaching different kinds of people than maybe they've reached in the past. We also want to be looking at how up to date they are in terms of sort of understanding what their vision is and aligning to that. We want to be looking at the relationship habits in the church, as well as checking in terms of what are some of the cross-cultural capacities. And that really varies from church to church. One of the themes of our work is really helping churches to engage community and to move beyond the walls and the circles that have existed. And so building bridges with community, that for churches that had not had many new people, or they've not had many people from a younger generation, or they've really been kind of isolated for a while in their community, there may be some work to do before we just walk out and try to start designing programs to reach community.
So, Paul, if in the self-evaluation it reveals that a church is not ready for your program, what are some of its options?
Well, and in terms of being ready for our program, there's kind of 2 tracks to our program. One track is the classic work that we've done with churches for years, which is around helping to do visioning and sort of strategic mapping around how they're going to do ministry in the situation they find themselves. If they're not ready for a robust conversation there, what the other track is just to stop and take some time to do some very intentional prayerful discernment, in terms of how God is calling them, in terms of what are some of their deepest convictions, in terms of what are their heart songs that they bring to ministry, and really to help them just at that point. And then beyond sort of strengthening them in terms of their ability to do collective discernment, they will have some options. And one of those options is to do robust kind of ministry planning, but there's other options which might range from partnering with another church, inviting a different church to worship inside their facilities and to create partnership. It could be, in some cases, churches are going to say, this is a lot of work. What we're going to do is we're just going to try to hold on. And we're going to try to just exist. In that case, we probably are not going to be working with them, but there are some places where the people are tired and there's just not a lot of energy that's going to be there for reinventing their churches or for innovation. And in that case, that becomes a conference conversation, of how can we come alongside this church. I would say right now we're working with maybe 14 churches. I would say about half those churches are ready just to run full steam into a planning process. The other half would do well to do the discernment first, and I think to get ready for the next thing. We want the church to be in a position if they start doing ministry planning that we don't disappoint, or they don't disappoint themselves. We want them to be able to plan things that they can follow through on.
Paul, we thank you for the work that Epicenter is doing and what you're doing with our annual conference. May God bless you and your work.
Thanks. And it's a joy to partner with Northern Illinois. Every church is different, but they're all beautiful in their own way.
Thank you, Myron. One of the churches participating in the project is Erie United Methodist Church in the Prairie South District. Myron met with Reverend Tiffany Garsha to see how it's going halfway through the process.
Tiffany, we are a few months into the Epicenter process, and what have you and your team experienced thus far?
Part of what we experienced is just a renewal of energy and excitement. Of course, this past year has been a challenging one in ministry, but to be able to take a pause, look at where our church has been through the audit and looking at the past few years and the various research we've done, and then starting to dream and wonder what God is calling us to do next. So that excitement that's starting to propel us forward out of COVID.
Did you discover any new things in the 360 assessment about the church?
Yeah, we really liked the 360 assessment. I think we were a little nervous about what the results would look like, but our church came out scoring pretty high in a lot of the various areas. And so again, that tied into that newfound hope and excitement for what's going to be next for our church.
I know it's pretty early in the discernment process, but what kinds of things are you maybe beginning to see in terms of your future?
Possibilities. So my church is heavily involved in mission and already doing a lot out in the community, but thinking of new ways where we can reach more people, new people, ways where we can bring people together after this, time of isolation.
And are you feeling renewal through this process for the congregation?
Oh, definitely. We're excited. I love my church. Our church is excited and they love their community. So we'll see what God has in store next.
I thank you.
Thank you.
Finally today, we'll leave you with a hopeful story about two churches in Elgin that merged in 2020 to form Journey of Hope United Methodist Church. Let's hear their story of why each church sought to merge, how they went about it, and where things stand now.
And I remember, getting here and immediately feeling this sense that God was not done. That God was not done with Epworth. That God was not done with ministry here in this particular location. And so I brought that to the ad council, to the church, through sermons as soon as we started. And excitement started to build.
And I would say 18 months before the merger, as a congregation, we were adamant that we were going to stay together. We would continue and continue. As time went on, that became unrealistic.
Financially, we're running into shortfalls a lot and didn't see that changing at all. So we started exploring. We had attended a merger workshop that the conference had put on.
From a Wesley standpoint, we had a small congregation and a limited number of healthy individuals to do the hands-on work.
And we went through a process with the congregation, and their choice was whether to merge, to try to move to a smaller location, or to just close. And the congregation they wanted to explore merging with someone.
The revitalization process actually began pretty quick as far as within attitudes. And then it wasn't long after that we received a call and there was a question about whether or not Wesley would merge with Epworth.
The speed bumps that was involved was convincing people to come to this building to do worship and so on, and that was a problem. And I have to admit that. We did meet with 3 churches, 3 UMC churches, and each tried to convince us that that was the landing place for us. And I believe that final vote was something like 90% in favor of merging with Epworth.
We talked with 4 other congregations, and at that point we had determined that Wesley probably would be the best direction to go. That was the best. We were most similar. Some of the other congregations didn't feel like we just really would click with.
When I think about the how, I think about a process that began with an initial meeting, a merger meeting between 2 different merger teams, as we all gathered around a table and began to have conversations. And we had one merger team meeting in person, and then the stay-at-home order came into play. Immediately thrust us into Zoom meetings. So we gathered as a merger team online for a few months, and while that could have been a reason to just kind of back off and say, okay, we'll resume this after the pandemic is over, we just kind of knew that we needed to keep moving forward.
What comes to mind is a meeting that we had just down the hallway here of a merger meeting. And at that merger meeting, it was agreed that the members of committees from both churches would be involved in a merger process. And it also included a merger of our staffs.
Most people around the merger table had said, just throw both names in a hat, pull one out. We're good with either one. And I knew that wasn't going to quite cut it. We had to actually make a decision, and so the 2 names that we had come up with was Living Hope and Journey. Those were the 2 names, and I remember talking with my wife about it one night, and she just perked up and she said, "Have you ever thought about combining the names? I mean, have you ever thought of Journey of Hope?" And all of a sudden, everything clicked into place.
I'm excited about the fact that people are hungry to get to know one another. In the last year, that's been somewhat challenging with the pandemic, that there's this desire to come together, and I'm excited to see where that takes us.
The hope is we have to get more youthful, but at this particular time, I'm getting to know more people. I'm seeing more and more people at our face-to-face Sunday services. That to me is hopeful.
I can only see these 2 congregations being completely lockstep in looking forward, in moving forward, and just loving each other through the process. It has been an amazing process to witness, and one that I will remember forever in my ministry. Just to see how things happen when God's hand just reaches in and guides. That's amazing to see.
Thanks for joining us today. To learn more, read our historical report or go to the Shepherding Team Corner of our NIC website.